Rory McIlroy has finally done it. He's won the Masters and won the career Grand Slam. So in this video, we're going to have a look at his swing from the last round and just break it down and see what makes it so good. And also, some of the reasons why he had some issues on that last round at Augusta. So I'll draw a line, a couple of lines on here. This camera angle is pretty stationary. And then we'll look at this right hand side as more of a dynamic action, just explaining what's going on. So first off, at setup, we'll notice Rory has just lovely athletic posture. You'll notice Rory sets a little bit open here. His feet, arms, shoulders, everything's aiming a little bit to the left hand side. I think he is trying to cut the corner a little bit, but you'll notice that with Rory, he did in that final round, set up a little bit open. I don't know if he was trying to guide it with driver, I think, down the first and the second where he hit in the bunker. I think a little bit was that he was just trying to guide it, and he openly said he was very nervous, which is unlike Rory, because normally he plays that big high draw. So setup wise, just very, very neutral in terms of his posture. He maintains that nice neutral curvature of the spine, which I love. His arms hang slightly outside the shoulders, which we'll see is fundamentally a lot of the good drivers of the golf ball do. And we've got a little bit of knee bend, just a really, really nice position for you to copy. If you look from face on, what you'll notice with Rory, got a little bit of foot flare, which I really actively encourage. You'll notice Rory has a really, well, not a super strong, but quite a strong left-hand grip. He has fairly weak right-hand grip to kind of neutralize it, and that will influence his wrist mechanics on the way back that we'll talk about, that he does work a little bit on. So let's just have a look at the dynamic takeaway here. You'll notice how Rory's pushing back to that right-hand side. He's got that little lateral sway. It's maybe an inch or two when we look at it on 3D, and you can see what that's doing is it's just really loading the pressure into that right side. It's a really powerful move if you do struggle with distance, just getting into that right side. What you'll notice is after he's bumped, then that hip starts to work back. So it's a bump, and then that right hip works up and back. It's not just the lateral sway, it's bump back, then that pocket moves, if you can see. What you'll also notice just from a dynamic perspective, like look at the amount of width there, look how far away his hands are from his belly button there. Tremendous amount of width. Now if we look from the down the line view, let's take him back. You can see that little bump, and you can see how that right butt cheek starts to work. You can see his yardage book in his pocket, how that's working behind the line. A little bit blurry there, but you can see how that club head is outside the hands. That club face is pretty much parallel to his spine angle, which we'll see a lot of great players do. Very sort of traditional move there from Rory. You'll note Rory takes that butt of the club slightly outside. Some guys are a little bit more sort of in one sort of motion there where it goes back in the straight line. Rory takes it a little bit outside. That again can be an issue of his sometimes, but he manages that quite well. So loads of width, loads of power. Let's take him back to this halfway back position. You'll see how those hips are starting to rotate a little bit more, not a huge amount, but a little bit more. You'll see there fundamentally. Let's bring him back on this position here. Look at the amount of like torque he's creating and stretch in the shirt. You can see all the ripples here in the shirt. He's creating a lot of rotation here. Love that move. You'll notice hands are in the center of the chest. He's set the wrist. You can't quite see it, but you will note that he's set the wrist beautifully there. Love that position. Now let's see. Now you'll also note like he used to lose a ton of height in this backswing. You'll notice how his peak of his cap just moves a little close to the ball, but he doesn't lose a ton of height until he starts. See, I wouldn't class that as the top of the backswing because he's actually already started his downswing here, which you'll see on this face-on view. I'll talk about this dynamically, and then we can talk a little bit more about it in a stationary sort of position. So what you'll see here is as Rory's hands start moving back to the traditional top of the backswing position, watch his hip, watch his knee, watch his foot. So he's moving back, and now you'll see how, get rid of those lines, you'll see the first move is he's pushing through this ball of the left foot, which then, because he's pushing so hard, you'll notice how that heel comes slightly, ever so slightly off the ground as he pushes really hard. But you'll notice, look at that dynamic motion, and the club shaft or the hands haven't really moved. They're almost still moving into backswing as he's got this dynamic motion as pushing really hard into the ground here through the balls of his foot. You'll see how, look at that belt buckle. Watch what happens there. Look how it's really loading down and got the mini squat. Because what he's doing is putting a ton of pressure into the ground there. And you can see, look at that dynamic motion whereby his hips are already pointing at the ball and his chest is way, way back here. It's a tremendous power move. That's where Rory creates this slingshot in his swing. Very, very powerful, and I call it a unicorn move. Just look at the athleticism there. Look how much that pelvis has moved down. I'm just going to run this through dynamically just to show you, because I don't think stationary positions do it quite justice. So you'll watch the pelvis, it'll move down, it starts to rotate, and then you can see how much by impact, again I want to do this dynamically, how much that pelvis has moved down and then up in such a short time period. Look, boom, down. So he's already moved considerably down and opened up those hips, and he's not even lead arm parallel in the downswing there. By the time we get to lead arm parallel, he's already moving that pelvis up. It's a tremendous power move. That's why Rory hits it so far. And if you are somebody looking to improve your distance, the key here is the speed that he does this at. Like I say, he's not at lead arm parallel here, and those hips have already moved down considerably, and they are going to start moving up. Now, let's just have a look at the traditional sort of top of the backswing stationary position, just to give you some ideas. Now, I talked a little bit about the start about Rory's strong grip. You'll notice he has a little bit of cup in that lead wrist, and that club face is nicely parallel to that lead arm. He has been working a little bit on that cup of the lead wrist, as it's traditionally called in golf swing terms. He uses a little device sometimes like the Pro Sendr on his trail wrist, or Tactic I think it's called, a little rod there, just to help him with that position. I personally don't mind him being a little bit cupped there because of how he really releases the club. But yeah, he works on that a little bit. Rory's habit sometimes is, because he gets the club out there, then he gets that right arm a little bit behind him. You can see how it kind of moves, and he gets the club a little bit too far across the line. That right arm sometimes comes a little bit too much out. Now, Rory, if you're going to be in that position, you're going to really favour this push draw sort of move, just because of how the forces are applying on the club. So, like I say, it's more of a case of that's Rory's sort of blueprint. He just needs to manage it. He's not going to get in like an Adam Scott pinned position with the right arm. He just needs to manage it. So we'll see here, Rory, he moves. This is that dynamic motion. You can see from that line on the head how much he moves down there, how much those knees have increased the amount of flexion in there, just really torquing into the ground there. He's not extending those knees, he's really flexing into them, creating a ton of power. Something that a lot of people don't realize. Look, he is creating space there. He is early extending by standard golf definitions. I use that term because, well, I'll bring him up to impact. You can see he's early extending. If we draw the line on the butt, I'd love to see his 3D, just because if we, like, TPI is really kind of defined, I think, early extension. Now, if we look at the 3D data of Rory, I'd be really interested to see if his pelvis is actually early extending on a 3D database, because if this pelvis moves rapidly rotationally wise, that location of the pelvis is kind of going to move forward just because of the amount of rotation. So By standard golf definitions, yes, he is early extending. Don't know by 3D just because of the sheer amount of rotation he's got there. So early extension, is it a killer? Yeah, you know, by drawing a line on your butt. I think, well, Rory's won the Masters, he's won the Grand Slam. Another player who come off that line, little pretty good player named Jack Nicklaus. So it's just about matching it up. Now, what we'll see here, Rory, is because he's across the line, that right arm position, he'll get really deep here. The hands you'd see normally, guys, probably a little bit more in the centre of the chest. Rory's just got this tremendous amount of rotation through the body here. You can see it on this here, just what I talked about before. Tremendous amount of rotation. And then I think on the 3D his hips rotate around 720 degrees. Average on tour is 540 degrees. So Rory is a freak in terms of rotation. Do you know he's nearly what we say in there? He's a good 1.5 times PGA Tour average. So he is ridiculously fast in those hips. So clear that off, and then let's talk a little bit more about what's happening as he moves a little bit further down there. We can't really see because the camera angle's a little bit blurry. Better from face on. You can see how he's retaining that angle. Like I say, everything kind of happens earlier with Rory. That dynamic transition, you can see how he moves up. Got this lovely position here where that pelvis starts to rise up, which we talked about, and then he's just throwing that club down the line, really releasing it down, keeps the head down for quite a long time. I like this angle, looking at this release here. You'll see how he moves down, boom, throws that club, look at that release, no sign of chicken wing or anything like that, really free flowing swing, keeps the head down quite a long time. Potentially could cause some injuries, I think, maybe long term. I'd like to see that head a little bit more free flowing. I'm just criticising the Masters champion here for that. That's an absolute joke, but it's just one of those that sometimes you can find that when we keep the head down like that, we can see some neck or, you know, some back issues. Hopefully I'm completely wrong, and Rory, you know, but to be fair, Rory said he's got no interest in playing later in his career, but you can just see how he keeps that head down for quite a while, and there's quite a lot of sort of bend through that spine there, and he has had a few issues with his back. I don't know about neck, but potentially something to look out for in the future. Get rid of those lines, and then we'll see. The best thing about Rory's swing is his finish. Look at that extension through his arm and that release. How that club just wraps around him and he holds his finish nice and upright. If we look from here, you'll see he plants that foot. He's coming up onto that lateral border of the left foot here as he rotates through. Look at that, boom. Tremendous swing. And then this one he's left it a little bit open on the way through here. You can see him leaning to try and save it. I love Rory's swing. It's one of the prettiest free-flowing swings in the game. It's not without, you know, some issues, and I think that's what makes Rory so exciting when he plays. He relies so much on his body rotation. I think when Rory gets a little bit older and loses a little bit of speed in that body, he may have to change his swing a little bit, but he may just have a shorter career, you know, and I think he'd be happy with that. Or I might be completely wrong. Rory is one of my favourite golfers. I can just watch this over and over and over. If you like this analysis, feel free to leave a like or pop any questions or comments in the comment section, and I'll try and get back to you.